All right, Jim, our next question sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group by Jim Vogt, a rising contributor to the group, apparently, it says here. Jim appeared in MTW for Gary, I always get this name wrong, Waronchak in the early 90s. I was a kid in those crowds, watching Bruiser Bedlam.
Bruiser Bedlam?
I can't read. Watching Bruiser Bedlam rough up the sound man when he played the Mr. Clean theme. Any fond memories of that appearance or others in Detroit and Michigan?
Well, at the time, Gary Waronchak was a longtime wrestling fan, but at that time he was operating MTW, was Midwest Territorial Wrestling. And he was doing shows in and around the Detroit area. And Gary would later on to become a politician, and I think, was he in the House of Representatives in Michigan? He reached a high level. I don't want to quote where he was at because it might be wrong, but we were in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, the Bodies, Rock and Roll Express, and I, and he wanted to, because Gary was obviously being a fan. Also, he traded tapes and everything, and the people in Michigan knew the Rock and Roll Express, and he had a small but dedicated fan base there that was kind of, smart to the tape trading and watching other programs. So he called and asked if he could book the Bodies and the Rock and Roll, and we had been on Survivor Series at that point. So could he book the Bodies and the Rock and Roll, and I to come up and do his shows? And we did 2 in a row on a weekend. And Gary's very easy promoter to work for and had good shows going on. But that's where I saw Johnny K9, who would later become Bruiser Bedlam, because he was, living in Ontario at that point, Windsor, and working independent shows around the area. And I said, how the fuck has this guy never been anywhere with that look? And as I talked to him and what the personality, and heard some of the statistics, what he could bench press and things he could do. And that's where, I made contact with him. I said, I'm going to bring you to fucking Knoxville. And we created the gimmick, and boom. But besides 2 more matches with the Rock and Roll Express to add to the canon of Cornette's teams against the Rock and Roll, I got to be honest, I don't remember any funny stories about the buildings we were in or any of the happenings of those events, just that's where, I found Bruiser.
Do you remember that spot where the sound guy would play Mr. Clean's music?
No, thankfully I don't think I saw that, or maybe it would have turned me off to fucking Bruiser.
What is Mr. Clean's music? I mean, the commercial has Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean.
Well, I assume that's what Mr. Clean. He didn't look like Mr. Clean. He looked like Ali Baba. Cut somebody's head off with a fucking saber.
But it's only 2 seconds. How do you play that to the point where it riles him up that he goes and chokes out the sound guy? But
I don't. Well, and we got to remember the letter writer was also a small child. So
that's right. Well, those are the memories that make wrestling fans. The commentator getting killed by a murderer.